Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is John Richardson and you're watching the Richardson's Rubicon podcast. Tonight I'm joined by Colette Walker. She's leader of the Independent Scotland Party, and we're going to learn about what Liberation Scotland stands for, or Liberate Scotland, I should say. Got confused already. I'm sure she'll correct me. And we're going to learn what the sort of strategy is for an independent Scotland. So let's bring Colette on. Hello, Colette.
Good evening, John. How are you doing?
I am panicked, as you know.
I've not frightened you that much already, have I?
No. You're fine. You're fine. It's just my timing. My son coming in dead on when I'm supposed to be recording live and streaming live, and everything else. It's all conspired. It always does. The last time I did an episode, it was guests in the B&B coming in late, checking in later than what they were supposed to. So now it's my own fault. It's my son. But there you go.
The joys of live TV, hey?
Yes. So, Colette, how are you doing? You all right?
I'm absolutely fine. Very, very busy, as you can imagine. Yeah. But in a good, positive way.
In a good, positive way. You're going to be polite and professional on me now, aren't you? And
as always.
So I'll start off some questions then, shall I? So what first got you into the independence movement?
I think I probably always have been. Even when I was younger, I always felt I didn't like any type of class system. I always felt I was always Scottish and not British. And I always had that sense of it wasn't sovereignty then because I was too young. Obviously, we're talking about sovereignty now, but I always felt my place was here, and nobody, again, when I'm talking about the class system, nobody was above me and nobody was below me. I wasn't better than anybody else and they weren't better than me. I've always had that feeling, that gut feeling inside me. I didn't understand probably at the time really what it was. Just to, in layman's terms, watching things like when I was younger, such things as like upstairs, downstairs. I couldn't. That just even riled me as a young girl. I just didn't get it, servants and the upper class, and I just don't like that. So it all starts to make sense to me now as I've got older, and especially over the past few years. But I think it's, again, Scotland being a nation and a country in its own right, again, it's always riled me that a lot of our powers have been taken away from us, and a lot of the decision making has been done from a parliament in another country, and that's just never made any sense to me whatsoever. We should be making our own rules, our own policies, and we should be able to govern fully, not in a devolved parliament.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the newspapers this weekend and some of the comments from various sources, I mean, it's like you've got your hands tied behind your back. You're allowed to speak only about certain things, right? You're not allowed to comment on, say, I don't know, foreign affairs, for example. Yeah, even though they tend to make a comment on foreign affairs, but they're not allowed to, generally speaking. And yet you get shouted down for perhaps not, performing well in certain areas. But you've got your hands tied behind your back and you can't speak about half a dozen things, and you've not got control of, proper monetary policy and things like that. So it just seems to me that we're in and I said this to someone today on X, that we're in an abusive relationship. Really, that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, it's a controlling relationship, and we're getting told, know your place.
Yeah.
It's almost, again, what I was saying about the class system, and, you know, years ago, only speak when you're told you're allowed to speak, and otherwise you just sit there and be quiet and be good and be grateful. It's almost like be grateful for what you're given.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, don't.
Yeah, welcome to the world of being a sovereign Scot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, talking of which, then, so Nicola Sturgeon said a few times that it was the definition of a Scot. Yeah, and it was along the lines of, who do you think is a Scot? And I think it was more related to who can vote, or, you know, who had an opinion. But I think the general term was, who do you consider a Scot? And she used to say, if you live in Scotland, you're Scottish, right? So is that something that you would agree with?
Yeah, if people are coming here and they're living here and they're contributing, absolutely. You know, and again, it shouldn't be about. I was actually just watching something earlier on, and it was about the comment that Anna Sarwar was supposed to have made, that Reform made a big deal about the Pakistani community. But what he was basically saying was that, you know, whether, no matter what race, whether you're Asian or whatever, you shouldn't be saying you're an Asian Scot, you're just Scottish. You know, you don't have, you know, we don't say I'm white Scottish, I'm just Scottish. You know, ask me, you know, again, I will never say that I'm British, I'm Scottish. But again, you shouldn't be defined by your race or your colour, or your, what the social and medical model call disability. I don't call it anything that begins with DIS. It's so negative that I don't want anything to do with it. You're Scottish, you're here, you're living here, you're bringing up a family, you're being educated here, you're contributing to society. You're Scottish. Fundamentally, that's what you are.
Oh, phew, that's a relief.
Not very often I agree with Nicola Sturgeon, but in this case.
I'll make that a headline, shall I? Oh, dear. Right, so now then, as you probably know, I did an episode a little while ago. I can't remember his name now. My name is my memory.
Alex?
Correct, yes.
Alex Thorburn, there you go. I'll help you out. It's fine. I'm
Thank you.
telepathic.
I have got such a bad memory. You know, it's unbelievable. It really is. So Alex, and he was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And he was telling me about Liberation Scotland and Salvo and the UN stuff and everything else. So can you sort of tell me where your party fits in and Liberate Scotland fits into all of that, please?
Okay, so there's a few different sections there. And again, I've just put up on social media today a graphic of a jigsaw puzzle and the different pieces that we need to put together to actually liberate Scotland from this colonial masters ruling in Westminster. But so ISP, first of all, ISP was set up in 2020 as a regional list party, because we needed to get that. Nobody had really spoke about it before. People were talking about not doing anything about it. So we really needed a regional list party, because the way our deont system works. And it can't really be about a one-party system. So to top up the MSPs that we required to get what at that time we class as a supermajority, you really needed a regional list party to top up the constituency seats, because if you're dominating in the constituency, you're not going to get the list. So really that's where ISP came in, because we wanted that supermajority, and we worked on a strategy of the deont system, we done videos, etc. And we talked about supermajority, and then talked about a plebiscite election, dissolving Parliament and holding a plebiscite election. So that was fundamentally where ISP came from. But our policies have always been regarding the sovereignty, proper Scots sovereignty, the Crown. You hear sovereignty, especially like leading up to Brexit in Westminster, but that's parliamentary sovereignty. In Scotland, we are the Crown, we are sovereign, same as in Switzerland. So it's a different type of sovereignty, but we were already talking about that. And one of the main things that ISP is very much in favour of is direct democracy, just as I said there about like the Swiss model. Because we feel that, again, the people of Scotland, the sovereign people of Scotland, really should have the final say on how their country is run. And the elected representatives, hasten to add, I don't call them politicians, I call them elected representatives, because that's really what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be there, and they should be accountable to the people of Scotland. And if they're not doing their job right, and they're not looking after the people of Scotland to their best and well and good, then they should be able to be removed ASAP. We don't have that system. So we're really looking at a complete new political structure, but it actually isn't a new political structure, because we had it before this fiction of a union that we have at the present moment. We had direct democracy. We didn't have parliamentary sovereignty before 1707. We were sovereign and it was a people's parliament. So really, we're kind of going back in time, but obviously just bringing it into modern day structure. So we had been going for a couple of years, and then Salvo was formed, and it was in January 2023, so just over about 2.5 years ago. I was speaking at an event, and Sarah Salliers was there. And I hadn't been able to go to a couple of the events that Salvo had put on to launch Salvo for people to go along to hear what they were about. So after I spoke at this particular event, she contacted me because she liked what I said regarding the direct democracy, sovereignty, the Crown. Everything was aligned to the Salvo principles as well. And we've been kind of working together over the past couple of years. 2 years ago, we worked on what was called the Stirling Directive, and we were making sure that our Parliament and the people within the Parliament knew that really they're working under the executive arm of Westminster. It's not really our people's Parliament. They're instructed by Westminster and by civil servants that are British civil servants as well. So, we really needed to make them know that they are only working on behalf of Westminster as the executive arm. And then, of course, I've been now involved with the Free Ports campaign for the past 2 years. Liberation then obviously started, which is the legal side of it. Salvo is the campaigning side. Liberation Scotland is the legal side, as Alex told you. He's been working with Liberation. He's actually now in Geneva just now, doing the human rights side of things. But obviously Craig Murray is just back from New York, speaking as an ambassador of Scotland, speaking to different people that were at New York at the C24 committee. So there's been a lot going on, but the Liberation Committee really is there as the legal basis of putting the case forward that Scotland is a colony, and they've been doing a whole load of research, as Alex had said to you when you interviewed him, and the stuff that they were finding out was just incredible. And again, I think it's that way of getting that understanding, different terminology about colonialism and sovereignty and territorial sovereignty, all these new words, and liberation, all these new words and terminologies coming out now, that it is quite hard for people to get their head around. This is a whole new language that we're now speaking because of the research that's been happening over the past good few years. It's a lot. But then there's now the Liberate Scotland, which is the political side, because you do need the legal side and you need the political will, but we also need the civic will. We do need the people out there to support everything that's happening legally and politically to then vote for it. So this is where the jigsaw piece comes in. So we have been aligned with Salvo because we've got the same type of principles about our sovereignty and
they're campaigning arm, aren't they? So that's their job, campaigning, isn't it? Really.
Salvo is the campaigning arm, yeah.
Yeah. So just to sort of wrap that up, and because you know how dodgy my brain is, Colette, right? So basically, the DeHunt system is one whereby I think the last time there was an election, everyone went SNP 1 and 2, or a lot of people went SNP 1 and 2. And because of the way it fills up the pots, and I'm just going to use that terminology, it basically meant that there weren't as many pots filled by SNP as they thought there would be, because the list vote returned, not because people necessarily voted, but because of the way it calculated, the list vote returned a lot of unionist parties, which is what generally happened, I believe.
Yes.
So what we're saying this time round, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, is to say, to do a pro-independence party 1, definitely, and a pro-independence party 2, definitely, but not the same party.
Okay, so there's different variants here. So when the devolved parliament started in 1999, the Labour Party took up the majority of the constituency seats. And I think people forget that even Nicola Sturgeon, who we spoke about earlier on, she stood in many an election and didn't get elected. When she did get elected, it was a regional list seat that she secured her first seat in the Scottish Parliament. Right. So regional list seats are actually really important. So when Labour were the leading constituency seat holders, that's when you had SNP, the Scottish Socialist Party, the SSP, you had the Greens, you had independent candidates. There was a variety of people that then got the regional list seats. And that's really what it was designed to do. But then when SNP started taking on the constituency, well, there wasn't really any other pro-Indy parties as such that were, there to take over any of the regional lists. But then when we came along, when ISP came along, we asked the SNP, if they would be willing to work with us. We spoke about, join us in to make the 2021 a plebiscite election, but they didn't want to know. Now, we stood down for when ALAPA announced that they were formed and they had launched. We took a democratic vote within the party to stand down and let Alex at that point have a shot at it. Now, the easiest thing and the most effective thing, if you were wanting a pro-Indy party parliament, would actually have been for the SNP to actually not stand candidates in the region and concentrate on the constituencies. So it would have been, the SNP, who were still fairly popular at that point. We knew that they were going to take the majority of constituency seats. and then another pro-Indy party such as Alipur in the region, and that would have caused less confusion, because again, a lot of people still don't understand our deont system, and I think that's actually on purpose, because we've got 3 different voting systems. We've got the first past the post, which is the constituency seats, and then you've got the representation one in the region, but also then you've got the STV, the single transfer vote in your local council elections. So people get really confused with what vote they're using for what, and I think that's done on purpose. So we have seen over. I've done an analysis and done stats a couple of months ago regarding the deont system to show the difference between the 2016 and 2021. And to show that in 2021, in the regional list, even though we were telling people don't vote SNP 1 and 2, vote for another independent supporting party in the region, the SNP put on a really strong campaign, but they got over 1 million more votes than what they did, and they lost 2 regional list seats. So instead of in 2016 they had 4 list seats, they only got 2 list seats in 2021. So it was over 1 million votes that could have went to other pro-independent parties or independent candidates that supported independence. So really, I think people have to get themselves educated. So this time round, over the past couple of years, we've seen by-elections. I stood in the Rubicon by-election in 2023. The turnout has been really, really poor. People aren't coming out to vote. They're getting really disillusioned by, politics.
I agree.
And they're just not wanting to bother. They're saying, what's the point? You're all the same. Yeah. Actually, we're not all the same, to be fair. And I would say that with even some elected members just now. We can't class them, that's tarring everybody with the same brush, and that's not fair. But people are being disengaged, and they're not paying attention. But what we are saying just now is, if you're wanting to make change for your life and your community and for Scotland as a whole, then you really need to go out and vote for it. You can't just stay at home. So Liberate Scotland, that's why ISP and the Sovereignty Party have joined with Indy for Indy to form a political alliance. We're putting our differences aside. We've been asked, voters have said for years, will you just work together and put your differences aside? Well, we've listened to that and we're willing to do that. And we formed this political alliance, Liberate Scotland. And so what we're actually saying is, now we're giving you a strong alternative. If you don't want to vote for any particular political party, we're giving you an alternative in the constituency and in the region to actually go out and vote, because your vote really matters, because it gives us a mandate. It gives us a mandate, and it shows that internationally that we've got that civic will to become independent.
Yeah. So just to go back on that previous result at Rutherglen, basically, and the reason I'm doing that is because I actually stood once, as a councillor.
Right.
But I think we had around about a third turnout for that by-election. Was it roughly the same for you as well?
Now, for that election, you would have thought it would have been quite a high turnout in 2023, because it was regarding the Margaret Ferreira not standing, obviously standing down as so it was quite a high-profiled by-election. There was a lot of media coverage around it. You'd have thought that it would have been a bigger turnout than what it was, and it turned out to be around about, I think it was about 24%.
Oh.
Because again, there was so many people. I actually had people coming out campaigning with me who had just left the SNP, non-partisan members, just people that were saying, well, if you weren't standing, Colette, and this is where the Liberate Scotland comes in, I was getting a lot of feedback saying, if you weren't standing, I just wouldn't have came out to vote.
Right.
So the actual turnout, I'm not, you know, I mean, I did, Westminster is not my election because we were standing on abstentionism. So it wasn't our election. We were using it mainly to promote the party and give people that choice and that alternative to actually cast a vote, because, you know, we've worked so hard to allow people that right to vote, and for them just to stay at home, it's pointless. They need to have their say. So people were saying to me in droves, if you didn't stand, I just wouldn't have been able to go out to vote. I would have just either spoiled my ballot paper or just not bothered at all. And that doesn't make change. That doesn't make change. So it was a very poor turnout. It was a very low turnout for such a high-profiled by-election.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you. So the mandate then, the mandate would be to do what?
The mandate just now, again, Liberate Scotland has, you know, we're just in the very, very early stages. We've just kind of came together. The door is open for other parties or other groups that wish to maybe come and maybe stand as a candidate or whatever. Very early stages. So I'm not going to give too much away at the present moment. But what we are saying is, you know, it's independence, nothing else, nothing less. It's just we are there to open the door, but not to decorate at the present moment. So we're there to get the mandate to declare independence. And as I say, we are working at getting everything set up and ready, and people will find out more as the time goes on. As I say, it's only formed a couple of months ago, so everything is in process. There's things going on all the time. We're having regular meetings. So there are, you know, it's very positive. It's very energised, and I think for those people that are disengaged at the present moment, I think this could really galvanise the independence movement again. You know, we actually want it to be bigger than leading up to 2014. So many people have left parties and will never join a political party again, but Liberate Scotland is an alliance. We're working together, and it's for independence, nothing else. So we have put our differences aside. So we're hoping, and I think by what's happening just now on social media, I understand that's just a bubble. But I feel with the response and the feedback that we're getting, I think that we could really energise the movement again and get actually people out campaigning, chapping on doors, doing stalls, and get them out and about again and making them feel part of the independence movement again and actually making a difference, not just the day of the election, but for a good possible 6-7 months before the election. Get them out, get them involved, make them feel as if they're part of the movement again, like we were in 2013, 2014.
Yeah. So one of the criticisms that I've seen on social media is that whilst everyone's, you know, or the pro-independent side of things are pro-independent and are interested in finally getting some traction on that and finally getting some movement on that, some of the criticisms I've seen are, well, whilst you said that you're talking about moving in and not decorating, some people would be wanting to know at least what colour the carpet would be and, you know, whether you're going to put some wallpaper up. And they would want to know about that because obviously when you get elected as an MSP, you're not just going to be sitting there and saying independent. There's day-to-day stuff as well. And there's going to be discussions about various policies and which direction the Scottish Government is going to go in. So would there be an overarching group of policies forming separate from what you currently have in your own manifesto, for example, right? Or would everyone go back to their manifestos and draw the policies out from there, such as you've got some great ones like universal basic income and things like that. So how would that work, and how does that get sold to people? Because people will want to see what it is that you kind of stand for when in power.
Right. Well, when I said earlier on about a people's parliament and direct democracy,
oh yes,
I think really when it comes down to it, if we get elected, as I say, we're really there to declare independence. And again, I don't want to get tied down because things are in progress and there will be a launch, and we will go over in more detail nearer the time. We're quite a bit away from an election, but more information will come out. But when it comes to policies, again, it really is up to the people, and that's why we need things like such as direct democracy, like Switzerland. We do need a constitutional convention. We do need a civic movement. And again, I think it's really down to looking at a more direct democracy consultation with the people, and not necessarily about the people that are actually elected. It really should be, again, they're the elected representatives, but it's the people that actually have the final say. So a lot should be going into more consultation in a direct democracy referendum style basis.
Swiss model, yeah.
A more Swiss model, yes. Yeah. So, but again, that all just really depends on the way forward. Who does get elected? Will they come forward with us and declare independence? But we're really there to do what should have been done a long time ago. But our manifesto and sovereignty, the Sovereignty Party, obviously it's a party, they have a manifesto. And people know what we stand for. But fundamentally right now, we can't, that's just a vision. It is like what we're saying, that, you walk into you go to view a property, and some people can't see beyond all the, the old-fashioned decoration and the clutter or whatever. They can't see it.
You're talking about the avocado bathroom suite, aren't you?
Exactly. You can't, some people can't see if you strip that all away and you literally just had bare walls, bare floor. What actually then would you want to build it as a home for you? And sometimes
I see.
A manifesto, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not saying in my manifesto, and I'm only speaking for ISP.
Yeah.
Our manifesto really is just a vision, a visualization of what could possibly be in an independent, liberated Scotland. The policies that we've looked at, such as the Finnish model for education. We look at different models from different countries, and we do a lot of research into, like, okay, no policy is perfect, but what works well in that policy, such as the education in Finland, what maybe doesn't work well? So could we tweak that a wee bit? How would that then change in Scotland? How would that work with our demographic? So we do a lot of research into different models, and it's just giving people that bit of visualization to say, well, if we stripped back and, we went away from Westminster and we're an independent country and we can literally build our country from scratch, from the roots up, what would you like? How would you like it to look like? Do you want universal basic income? Are you still wanting a means-tested social security system that is broken? Your education system, EFTA, etc., etc. Do you want free port? All these things. But it's a visualization. We are not demanding that that's what we are going. We're giving you the options.
That's excellent, because one of the things that I keep on banging on about on this podcast is the visitor levy, right? It's a major bugbear of mine and many other people's. Actually, it's horrendous, because what it is just essentially, to me, it's another tax, and it's on everyone.
Yes.
Right? It's not just on accommodation providers; it's on everyone, because when someone from the island stays in Glasgow 2 weeks before giving birth, they'll have to pay this visitor levy. There are no exemptions
No.
in regard to that, and it's 5% on the total accommodation cost, which is not insignificant. It's the highest, in fact, it's probably second highest in Europe. Because everywhere else is on a tourist tax, you would pay something like €3 or €4 a night, and which in itself sounds bad enough, but on accommodation, in some areas of Scotland, it's quite expensive. You could end up paying easily around about £80 a week on a visitor levy, and that's quite a lot of money. And that's all down to the fact that, and the argument we get is that, the councils are underfunded by central government and they need that money. And so you're going to have to pay it. And of course, that's everyone in Scotland who travels to an area that charges this visitor levy. Well, that's just not right. It's just not right. And you write to your SNP councillors, for example, who's in the majority government at the moment, whose policy this is, and you almost get stonewalled, really. And then when you write to the MSPs who are responsible for your area and everything else, you get told to refer back to local government, which isn't listening to you at all.
No. But what I would say then is, again, there's so many issues regarding the Barnett form, your block grant. And again, it's actually, I was just discussing this earlier on. I just came out of a Freeports meeting, but
oh, good.
when you look at the amount of money that's going into seemingly investment into free ports and special economic zones now in Scotland, but in England, what people don't understand and they don't realise, and this is why we've been travelling the country for the past 2 years solid, is that the more privatisation, now England have had free ports and special economic zones for about 5 years, literally right after Brexit.
Yeah.
And the more privatisation that is happening in England, the less public money that is being spent. That has a major impact on our Barnett consequentials, our block grant, because we get a proportion of the public money that's been spent in England. So, as you know, we've all heard of so many councils down there going bankrupt because of the amount of privatisation, which is on steroids at the present moment. And the councils are absolutely ruined. So the public services are being decimated, and who uses public services the most is the most vulnerable in society. They need the public services. And again, it's destroying lives. It's just destroying communities. It's destroying people's health physically and mentally. But this is then going to have, if it's having that effect already in England, we are majorly impacted because we don't have full fiscal autonomy here. We get a block grant, and that's going to be affected as time goes on. Now, our free ports have only been going for the past year, and it's already causing so much negativity. And they are 25-year leases, and this has only been a year live.
25-year lease. Yeah.
So we're already seeing impacts happening in Scotland through the public versus private in England, and it's only going to get worse here in Scotland because of that. And the local councils are being deprived of a lot of money because of what's happening in England. But as you say, they're actually having to invest in these zones. So there's actually money coming out of the council's budget to actually invest into the free ports or special economic zones. Now, I was just talking about this in the meeting, but I have spoke about it at several events, and I spoke about it at the SSRG conference last month. The Edinburgh News, because 70% of Edinburgh is part of a free port. So 70% of Edinburgh. So it's not just a port or a harbour or an airport. It's actually part of the whole
city. It's a huge landmass.
It's massive. Now, 2 months into the fourth free port going live, Edinburgh News actually put out an article stating that Edinburgh Council had to increase their investment to this free port, which was supposed to be £80,000 investment.
Yeah.
And within 2 months of it going live, it went up. It had increased to £334,000.
Wow.
Now, that's only within 2 months of it going live. Can you imagine what that money could be used for within, Edinburgh City Council for, education or homelessness or child poverty, etc. All the community centres, all these things that is desperately needed, but it's going into seemingly this investment, and they're not getting a return. They're not seeing a return.
No.
And we're not getting elected representatives coming to our public meetings to actually answer any of our questions. They don't come.
No.
They're not accountable.
Exactly, which is this whole thing that you're talking about, the Swiss model, would probably help address that, definitely.
Exactly, because then you would be able to have, instead of them imposing it on you or telling you this is what's happening.
This is what's happening, yeah.
And you deal with it, tough luck. Or again, because people are so disengaged, they're actually not realising what's going on in their own on their own doorsteps, until then they're affected financially or by the lack of public services, etc. They say, well, when did that happen? That's when you weren't paying attention. That's when you were looking across the way and you turned away for a few minutes.
The news was distracting you with some other nonsense.
Yes, yeah. As they do, it's a deflection on what they don't want you to know about.
That's right. You say, look over here, squirrel.
Yes.
That's what they do.
Yep.
So, okay, well, that's a terrifying vision of the future you've just put forward there, Colette.
Well, actually, to be fair, I think people actually have to understand that the whole, what I said earlier on, the whole political system is broken, and we do need a new structure, and direct democracy is what we think is a much better, a much fairer, and more accountable system for everybody. And again, that's just a visualization of what an independent Scotland could look like. You make the decisions, and not people that think they're above you.
Yeah, and I think using the model that's already in use successfully in another country is will give a lot of people some faith, because what they wouldn't want to do is just try something new that hasn't been.
No, we don't do ideology. No, ideology is not a good thing. You need references. You need that visualization. You need a reference point, and that's where people can look at things like the education system in Finland, or any trials of the universal basic income, or different things. People need to be able to reference and see how it actually works and get their head around it, because again, it's something completely different, a bit like what we're saying about the different language that we're using just now. It's different than what we were talking about 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago. We're talking a slightly different language now about our sovereignty and about our rights, the claim of right, etc. So things change, but I think it's important to show what's happening just now, because we are ruled by the colonial masters of Westminster. We do have a parliament which is parliamentary sovereignty over people sovereignty, but also an executive arm of Westminster. And that's why we still have to, anybody that gets elected to Holyrood still in Scotland has to swear an oath to a monarch that isn't of ours.
A monarch in another land.
Yeah, exactly. So, these are all markers to show that we are a colony. And we're really needing to show that this, I think a lot of people, this is the way it's always been. And it's all that, well, that's the way it's always been. It's always been like this.
It's going to be a bit of inertia that you've got to deal with, isn't it? That's the thing. People are used to it being this way.
Yes.
Think it's the right way because they're used to it. They've been hoodwinked into thinking that the economy is just like a household budget, and there's nothing to spend on anything because they've ran out of money. And yet we all know there's billions sloshing around all over the place.
Well, they've got billions for war, but they don't have billions to feed the homeless or home the homeless and feed, the 1 in 4 children that are living in poverty. But when you talk about children living in poverty, the majority of them are actually living in what I call employment poverty. People, their families are in employment, but they still just can't pay all the bills and make up at the end of the month, have a couple of pounds left to spare. Now, you're saying about, change. I do understand some people aren't very good with change and they think, this is the way it's always been. But when you are talking about a budget, even a household budget, you've got to think about when you watch programmes like, say, Martin Lewis, and he gives you, pointers and advice of, how to cut down your phone bill or your electricity bill, you switch to another provider, or, your car insurance, and you do compare websites, or, if you want another bank account, some banks will give you some money for joining. There is ways then, and that's change. That is change. You're looking at, how can I change my budget? How can I make that better for myself? Oh, well, somebody's advised me to go and look at this other energy company or another mobile phone company. My God, I've saved a couple of £100, and that makes a big difference to their household, and they'll maybe be able to save that for a small holiday that they've never had for 5-10 years, because they never had any money at the end of the month to actually go on holiday. Change is difficult. I understand that, but sometimes it can be for the better, and you have to realise that sometimes you have to think out the box. And if we don't try and make the change, we just stay the status quo. And I'm sorry, but I don't want to be in the status quo. And the status quo is just
circling the drain at the moment, isn't it? Yeah.
And if we don't make the change now, as I've said a few times now, because of what's happening with the likes of the free ports and our, the gas and oil, the closure of Grangemouth, our energy resources going directly down to England, our economy is going to be decimated. People are leaving, the companies are leaving, people are leaving to go and get jobs elsewhere. We will not have a Scotland to fight for if we don't do it next year. Next year is, I thought 2021 was a big year for the election after Brexit. This is even bigger. It's even more important, because otherwise we are not going to have a Scotland to fight for, because our economy is going to be wiped out with the free ports, the special economic zones, the amount of energy that's getting taken from us every single day, and we're not getting any benefit from that. And the only way we'll get that is by being independent.
Yes, I totally agree. Do we have then a very rough timescale from yourselves about the sort of drip feed of information leading up to the elections? Is there going to be a plan? Is what I'm asking.
Oh yeah,
There's
there
going
is
to be a
going to
plan.
be a
But
plan. Yeah, but again, our strapline, there's no other policies. That fundamentally it's independence, nothing else, nothing less. We are planning to declare independence as long as we've got the mandate, which I think we will, because we are planning on making sure that we galvanise the movement. We are showing that we are willing to work together, but we, again, part of the jigsaw, you've got the legal case of the decolonisation UN case that is in progress.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the political will, which we are willing to work together to declare independence. And the last piece of the jigsaw is the people to go out and vote the day. And that completes the jigsaw piece as far as I'm concerned. And that is the main thing. But the strategy, again, it's very basic. It sounds basic, but it's big. It's independence, nothing else. But the time frame, that will, like everything else, you will, once we've clarified it, once we've confirmed it, you will hear about it. But there will be a big launch. And again, we are hoping that we will be able to start going out to campaign very, very soon. The sooner we can start going out and campaign, then the better, because we need, as we know, some of the mainstream political parties, they are constantly out. So, but again, we need to set this up. We need to do some crowdfunding. We need to get the publicity. So this is where just now we're letting people know who we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. The rest will come in time. But we're here. It's independence, nothing else, nothing less. We're giving you the key to the door. We will declare independence. And then it's over to the people of Scotland in a direct democracy style structure. And you can make the choices.
Brilliant. That sounds great. I'm looking forward to it. I wish it was next year already, Colette.
Listen, I can't actually believe that ISP is over 5 years now. And it's just so much has happened. I can't believe where 5 years has gone. I don't know, but it will be here in no time whatsoever. I don't know where this year's gone. Never mind.
I know.
Six, because we're only going to get busier, and as you know, the busier you are, the days just go into each other.
Yeah, time passes quicker. It certainly does. Well, I'm looking forward to having you on again, Colette, if you don't mind, because I want to have some updates from you in a little while from now, if that's okay with you, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. As I say, we're going to be, ISP are going to be holding their own stalls, because in the constituency we will be standing as ISP, the regions as Liberate Scotland, but we will be promoting Liberate Scotland everywhere we go, because we are an alliance. So we are starting to go out and do stalls. I've been speaking at the All Under One banner rallies. So we are going to be out and about, but really the more publicity we can get, the better, and the more people get informed and want to come out and help us, even better.
Brilliant. I've got one of your colleagues on. I'm interviewing him in a couple of days' time.
Now, do you remember his name?
No, I don't.
Will I tell you? You've got my colleague John Forbes on from the Free Ports team. I didn't think that. Right. Yeah, John Forbes. I didn't. I thought, well, let him do some work. Instead of me talking. I know I've spoke about Free Ports tonight, but I think it's actually really important that you actually bring the economic, what's happening economically, and how Scotland could change without these silly free ports. But he will go into it in more detail with the work that we've been doing for the 2 years. So between myself and my friend and colleague Alex Thorburn from Salvo and Liberation and John from Freeport, we're keeping you busy. John.
You are keeping me busy. I'm loving it. It's great. So thank you so much, and thank you for reminding me of his name.
You should have remembered it. It's the same name as you.
Oh, I'll tell you, I am absolutely terrible. That's why I get people to put the names in front of on the screen. In fact, I was bad with Alex, because Alex's email address doesn't have his full surname on.
That's right.
Right. So, of course, when I introduced him in the previous episode, I actually just read the email surname, you know. And it was later on that I realised, oh, he's actually put it down as Thorburn. So,
I like to make things very simple in life, very basic, less is more, as they say, less is more.
less is more, certainly is. Well, thank you so much, Colette, for coming on. Have you got anything else to say, do you think? Or
No, I really just want to say that, to encourage people to believe that there is an alternative and believe there can be change for the good, and get involved, come out and help us in any way you can. Get in contact with us if you want to even stand as a candidate. Come and speak to us. But, we really need people out there doing stalls, chapping on doors, helping with leaflets, whatever they can do. Spread the word on social media. Every little bit helps, and we really do want that movement galvanised again. It's the only way there is going to be change, and you've got the power to change it.
Brilliant. That's Colette Walker, the leader of the Independent Scotland Party.
Riffing the Rubicon. The talk show at the end of its tether. This podcast was brought to you by a simple man. The website is at richardsonsrubicon.com, where you will find all social links apart from X. You'll also find the details of the next live show, which is usually on a Thursday at 9 p.m. UK time. There are many ways to take part on the show, from simply listening or watching, reading the show notes, leaving a voice note, emailing the show at john@richardsonsrubicon.com, arranging a fireside chat at a time of your choosing, becoming a guest, or calling in to the talk show during recording. You have no excuses, and we have absolutely no plan. Join in now. richardsonsrubicon.com.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.